It's week 9 here at House of Horns. It's the Rams against the Buccaneers, or should I say Tom Brady against the Rams, or should I say a rematch of a divisional round of the playoffs last year? What a thriller that was. But I won't get too far ahead. I'm Gilbert Manzano, Rams beat reporter for the OC Register LA Daily News. And as always, joining me, Victor Javier Corona, Vic, the producer, all the titles. Victor, it's Stafford against Tom Brady. Like I mentioned, a rematch. Doesn't feel like the playoff sizzle of a year ago. A 3-4 team Rams, a 3-5 team Buccaneers. But Vic, are you excited about this matchup in Tampa Bay this week? And also, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for this matchup. I know it doesn't sound like it. It's Wednesday night, but we're here. We're excited to break down this matchup between the Rams and the Buccaneers, two teams that seem to be mirroring each other halfway through the season, kind of halfway through the season. It's kind of weird now with the 17 game season that we have now. Usually at this point we'd be at the midpoint, but yeah, I mean, and we have a great show for you guys. We have some new things for you guys on here. We have your usual news and notes with Gilberto Manzano here. We are adding a new thing here where we're gonna kind of go over storylines for both the Rams and the Buccaneers. We also have, as we've always been doing, our player matchups, keys to the game. And we're introducing something since we're getting a lot of feedback from you guys. We're going to have a mailbag. We had a couple people ask a couple kind of not really questions, but they kind of commented. So we're going to kind of go over that. And then, of course, we're going to have our predictions. And so, yeah, we have a lot to get to, Gilbert. Let's start us off with your news and notes. What do you have for us from Rams practice today?
Yeah, we have a lot to cover, and that's why we're gonna break it up into news and notes and storylines. So let's kick it off with the notes, and the big one is Cooper Kupp. How is Cooper Kupp doing with that ankle, the right ankle injury that he sustained against the 49ers? Nobody wants to talk about that game, huh? The 49ers game. Oof, that was ugly. But yeah, it could have been worse though. But Cooper Kupp is doing okay with the ankle injury. He did not practice on Wednesday. So if you were somebody who saw the tweets come up, hey, Cooper Kupp not practicing, and you're freaking out, then you missed out on the McVay presser on Monday. He said the plan is for Cooper Kupp not to practice Wednesday and then be limited Thursday, Friday, be questionable, and then play in the game. You know the whole standard. If you're playing fantasy football, you know how it is for the injury. So uh, don't freak out. Cooper Kupp is on track. And the biggest part about Cooper Kupp, that's a good sign. He was out there with the helmet on, with the pads. He wanted to feel like he was part of the practice. So he's ready to go. He was just working on the side. And then the one that I'm a little concerned about, the center Brian Allen did not practice because of knee swelling, but maybe that's just precaution because he didn't play the previous 5 games. Like Victor, that was his first game since week 1 when he played against the 49ers. And he had a great game, I felt like. But the knee injury maybe had swelled up a little bit after the game and needed some rest. So it could be kind of some maintenance work. So hopefully for the Rams, because they can't afford another starter down on the offensive line, it's just a maintenance day. And then a note, we talked to the veterans today, or being Wednesday, the quarterback Matthew Stafford, who has a lot of matchups against Tom Brady. Well, maybe not too much because one of them was with the Lions. There goes the background noise.
Is
First one
that
of the day.
Benito over there?
Yeah, it's the feeding time for the cats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Man, they're really going at it right now.
Yeah.
Feeding time. Nice segue there because somebody needs to eat in this matchup here. But Tom Brady and Stafford, obviously we asked the quarterback Stafford, how did you feel about playing Tom Brady? He's like, yeah, really special. I don't get what he's doing at age 45, and he probably doesn't feel like he's going to get to age 45. But still a good matchup between two guys who've done a lot in the NFL. And then the other one of note that I really, really was interested about was Bobby Wagner, another veteran who's played against Tom Brady many times. And it's been a big issue, Victor, is like, how do you create pressure? And then, how do you create pressure against a guy who has a quick trigger? And Tom Brady is like the king of letting that ball go, be quick. Maybe not this year because you'll get into it with the offensive line. But he pretty much said, like, hey, if you can't get to the guy because you have no time, you better have some sticky coverage. And it's a little like I was thrown back. I was like, you guys are playing that zone where you're backed up. Like, how do you get sticky when you're backed up? So that was a note for me. Maybe they kind of switch it up and they play a little more forward with Tom Brady. They didn't do it against Jimmy G, but we'll see. But they are aware of the quick trigger and they are aware of the lack of pressure. So that is news and notes there. A couple injury notes and a few notes that stood out to me on Wednesday.
No, then I mean that Matt Stafford one was really, it was good to hear that, because then that way we kind of know where his head is at in terms of facing Tom Brady. I know a lot of the quarterbacks, this, I mean, who knows if he's gonna retire? We we keep thinking that Tom Brady's finally gonna retire. So, and I know that you have to keep asking because this might be the last time, and hopefully this is the last time, at least for a lot of teams around the league. I'm sure they're tired of having to face Tom Brady. But let's get to our our uh, our storylines. Go ahead and let me ask you about the news. I know we were in the middle of interviewing Kirk Morrison when we got the news about the passing of Sean McVay's grandfather. What has come out of it, and then what has been the big story from it for you?
Yeah, it was at first it was an awkward start to the presser because McVay gave an update on Cam Akers, but that's not the way you want to start the presser after what you heard what happened with his grandfather on Tuesday. John McVay, the legendary GM of the 49ers for 22 years. He wasn't a GM for 22 years, but he was part of the team for 22 years. And he was big in winning 5 Super Bowls for that team in the 80s, John Montana days, Jerry Rice, all that, Steve Young even. Uh,
Bill Walsh.
so when he uh, obviously, another great coach for him, and that was a great foundation that they had. Um, but when he said Cam Akers, us the reporters were like, hey, hold on, we don't want to talk about Cam Akers just yet. Thank you for the update. How are you doing, Sean McVay? This is big for your family. And I've only been there for what 4 months covering this team, and Sean McVay before that has brought up his grandfather many times, how big he was in his career, influential, a role model. So I had a feeling it's going to be a pretty emotional presser. So when we said, hey, slow down, we wanted to ask how you're doing. We started off by, getting how he's feeling. And that's when he was trying to fight back the tears. You could tell that it was tough for him to deal with the loss of his grandfather 24 hours later and then go back to being a head coach in the NFL. The cool thing was like, it was raw emotion. He kept it real. It's a side that you kind of don't see too much from Sean McVay because sometimes he's very robotic. He's a head coach. He's boom, 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 next kind of thing, and let's get this on and move on. But he took his time talking about his grandfather, and it was hard. It was nice to hear the stories from him. And then he got choked up at one point, and we were pretty much saying, hey, it's okay, man. Can you give us a special story that you remember? And obviously, he has way too many to pick one, but he just started going and thinking about all the memories. And the best part, Victor, was that he wasn't focused on the 5 Super Bowls. And yeah, it's nice when he goes to play the 49ers in Santa Clara and he sees how beloved his grandfather was, and his name's like on every wall. And you go into that building or that room over there is named after John McVay. So that's a special thing for him. But the special thing, he was so grateful because he knows that a lot of people wouldn't get the opportunity that he had at a college. Like he played at Miami of Ohio. He was 22 years old, and boom, got a gig in the NFL because of his connection with his father, and that was a nice luxury that he had. But he was so grateful to get the opportunity because of his grandfather and everything he taught him growing up. So, uh, it was tough, and condolences to the McVay family to see that, but it was cool to hear the stories and how grateful he was, and how kind of a man this John McVay was. And like, I didn't know too much about him because it was in the 80s. I knew the name, but I didn't really dig into today or yesterday. So to hear from Sean McVay and for him to show that emotion was pretty cool to hear. And wow,
Yeah,
on
there's
that note,
Benito.
Benito wants to come back and hang out. But yeah, Victor, I don't know what you have to say while Benito's here. I'll push him off right now.
No, for me, it was honestly really nice to see McVay not be that robotic for once and just be able to be himself. And I'm not saying that he's not it's football, and you want to be able to, I know that he calls everybody by their name before he starts, which is a John Gruden thing, and and that's nice of him. But for this one, it was just nice to see the emotion come out of him, and especially talk about his grandfather and how much it meant to him. And I'll be honest with you, as someone who's followed the NFL now for over 30 years, around 30 years or so, I had never heard about his grandfather until this year. And for me, when I came to the Niners, it was always Bill Walsh, it was Jerry Rice, John Montana, John Taylor. It was all the players and the coaches. It was never about the GM, and maybe that's on me for not doing a little bit more research on there. And he reading some of the stories today, he was a big part of those Bill Walsh teams. So yeah, I can see why he had a big influence on McVay, and why, like, I saw both sides, the 49ers and the Rams,
Mm.
tweeting out stuff. So that tells you the respect that both franchises had for the McVay name.
And I'll end with this, Victor. It's crazy how much he did with as a GM for the 49ers. That's why you remember him. He was so successful doing that. But he used to be a head coach for the New York Giants. I was looking at his resume. I was like, oh, this guy used to be a coach too. So it explains where Sean McVay kind of got that background. Because also, I'll get into it right now. McVay is really heavy in involved in the front office. So he has that side, and then he has the coaching side. So very influential in his career. But moving on, Victor, the other one with the update is the Cam Akers stuff. Uh, this is very interesting because, if you've been watching the show here, House of Horns, we've been telling you they're not going to find a trade partner for him. There was too many things going on. He wasn't playing well. Also the Rams didn't really have a lot of running backs themselves. Are you going to give up on a guy like that? And then also, like, do you give up on him for a 7th round pick? You're not getting. I don't think they're going to get a 6th round pick. Like Jeff Wilson from the 49ers got a 5th round pick. And you think Cam Akers could get that? It was just tough. I think I saw
Okay,
somebody. Go ahead.
Can I interrupt here? Sorry, but I have to ask you this because I saw Tom Pelissero
Yeah,
story where he said that they had offers, and honestly, like, I called BS. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's him doing a favor for the Rams, or the GM there, because there is no way. As one of the things that came up for me was during our interview. Now I'm gonna plug this right now. Is if you haven't checked out the Kirk Morrison
Yeah.
interview, it's great. Like, he gave us 25 minutes plus of just great content there. So after this, go ahead and, if you haven't checked that out, go and check that out for with Kirk Morrison, because he gave us one of the things that stood out to me was, like, he said, if Cam Akers hasn't figured out, like, this doesn't take a beating to his confidence, like the fact that nobody wanted him, like, that was huge. When I heard Kirk say that, I was like, whoa, like, this is inside the building. He's the one talking to people inside the building. Like, so it tells you that there's something going on between Cam. Maybe this was a Cam Akers issue. It wasn't a Rams issue, it sounds like.
Yeah, and that's my bad for not bringing up the interview, the Kirk Morrison interview. Make sure you check that out on the channel here, House of Horns. It's also I just posted it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for the audio version. Former NFL linebacker for 8 years. He's also a Rams radio host. And I was thinking, okay, Kirk does a Rams radio pregame, postgame show, halftime show. He might be a little kind of chill on the Rams. Nope, he it was the real deal. He broke it down, so you got to check out the interview for sure. That's my bad for not plugging. Great by you, Victor. And yeah, I laughed on the Pelissero report. It was more like, hey, we had some offers here. They tried our best. Now let's make amends and harmonize and bring back Cam Akers. It's tough for me because everything we already laid out in terms of the circumstances here. And when you see running backs like a James Robinson going for a 6th round pick, no, I'm not buying this. That they have some offers, but especially when you're the Rams, when you're limited on draft picks, when you get one, you probably just should take it, right? But it sounds like we're headed towards a reunion. Both sides are looking at each other like, yeah, we were probably arguing a lot. We're petty, but this running game is pretty stagnant. You want to play football? You're tweeting out you miss football, that you're sad, and come back, come to the building on Wednesday. Let's talk it out and figure it out. So I think they find that was the best thing is clear the air. The trade deadline is over. They're stuck with each other. Can we make this work? That was the conversation on Wednesday. So I wouldn't be surprised he's back there on Thursday. Like he wakes up and realizes, hey, Sean, I'm good. Whatever you want, man. Bring me back. Let's do it. I want to play football. I could definitely see that Thursday, Friday, him playing with the Buccaneers against the Buccaneers. And that'd be big for this offense. They need all the help they can get. So Victor, I think they're headed that way. And adding to that trade talk for the last thing on the storyline, I'm taking too long here again.
No, go ahead.
They were quiet. This is rare for the Rams. They were quiet. There was nothing there for the trade deadline. There was reports that they were going after, Brian Burns, maybe even a Bradley Chubb. But I'll just end it this way, Victor, because that's smart. That's where you should focus on is an edge rusher because they're important just like the quarterbacks and even the offensive linemen. But linemen are not available, so you go and you get the pass rusher. Don't go get a running back. Don't get a wide receiver. No, no, no. If you're trying to build for now and the future because you lost that Von Miller. They went for Von Miller. They tried to sign him that didn't work out. But you saw the results last year. So they were trying to get the replacement. They could not do it, but finally it caught up to them. All the consequences of going for a Stafford, going for a Ramsey, going for a Von Miller, it felt like they ran out of trade chips. They had no more ammo. And the crazy thing about it, they've been so aggressive, and people saw that they had so much results and success by winning the Super Bowl. Other teams got aggressive, and now they're giving up first round picks and another first round pick and a second round pick. And you're the Rams, you're asking yourself, well, we don't have these draft picks. We're going to give them away. So you're out of the race for Bradley Chubb. But what about you want to go for Brandon Cooks? And maybe it won't require a high draft pick. Oh, the salary cap is too tight. You can't take on the $12 million of Brandon Cooks because you've paid other guys. So it just finally came together for the Rams, and it was quiet. And at some point, you got to be like, hey, let's take these draft picks and develop and do it again. So I'm not too surprised about it, Victor.
Yeah, and one of the things that was I know we talked about, but nobody's gonna help the Rams. And then the other thing was it's a copycat league. Like everybody's copying what the success that the Rams had, by winning the Super Bowl and trading for OBJ and Von Miller. So, and one of the other things I saw was like the Denver Broncos are responsible for the last two teams making it to the Super Bowl, by trading away. Like they traded Emmanuel Sanders to the 49ers and they made it to the Super Bowl. And then you had last year with Von Miller and the Rams. So I thought
So it's
that
the
was kind of
Dolphins this
crazy.
year.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. We'll see how things shape out. But in terms of the trades, I mean, it was pretty evident that they needed a pass rusher. It's no secret that uh Aaron Donald is struggling, not struggling, he's still doing his thing, but in terms of him being able to get sacks, it's been hard because he doesn't have someone he can count on until last week with Leonard Floyd getting those two sacks. So um yeah, I mean, we noticed that. And then I mean, some of the other receivers that were available, as you talked about, the salary cap finally bit them here, and they couldn't do much there's not much out there, and people aren't going to help them out because they're the Rams, they're the defending champs. That's why, as Kirk Morrison, here a plug again, said, it's hard to repeat, man. It's in any sport. This is why it's hard.
Yeah, no, definitely. But the funny thing is, like I saw these signs coming a mile away like a month ago. Like they're gonna try to get aggressive, but they don't have the ammo anymore. But here we are. And it's time to talk about the opponent of the week, Victor. You got us covered on the storylines for the Buccaneers, and this is a team. These are two teams that look at each other like Spider-Man. Offensive line problems. Offensive line problems. Okay, what do we have here for them? Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Victor.
Yeah, so one of the things that has happened with the Buccaneers this year is that they lost most of the interior linemen this year going in because they thought Tom Brady wasn't going to come back. So you had Kappas go and sign with the Cincinnati Bengals. You had retirement happen, as Kirk Morrison talked about, and then they brought in Shaq Mason from the Patriots. And so one of the things that you talked about earlier with Tom Brady is that he's been really good at getting rid of the ball, right? But even with the thing with him is if you bring pressure up the middle, he's gonna struggle. And their interior line has been really bad this year. The other thing that's happened with them is that they're last in like every category in terms of rushing. They're like They're averaging about 60 yards a game. So they've been pretty bad on that end too. They're like averaging 3 yards a carry. They've only had 3 touchdowns this season. So that takes away their explosiveness. But one thing that I wanted to talk about that Kirk Morrison brought up that you and I were both kind of like, what? Like we didn't even think about is he really misses Rob Gronkowski on this
Yeah.
offense because he's been his safety net, whether he's been with the Patriots or the Buccaneers, and not having that safety net, even having guys like Chris Evans and Evans and Chris Godwin has really affected him this year. And then in terms of the defense, I mean, they're having problems with the run there for some reason. You have problems with Devin White and Levante David. They have been inconsistent this year. You've had a Hall of Famer go after Devin White this week, criticizing his effort against the Ravens. I mean, when you're getting run that bad, I mean, it kind of takes your soul away, especially with what Lamar Jackson can do on the ground and those running backs. So, yeah, there's a lot there for these teams mirror each other as we talked about, and I think part of it is the fact that both of them are kind of struggling with the success that they've had. The Buccaneers from a couple years ago winning the Super Bowl, and then now the Rams, having to defend their title.
It sounds like the Buccaneers need Captain America, Chris Evans, right?
Yes, yeah, that's where I got stuck.
I was like, yeah, it's such a Marvel guy, Mike Evans, Victor. But
Mike
it's
Evans.
funny because these are a lot of problems that you're mentioning are the problems that the Rams have. The only thing that the Rams have better is like that Stafford has a security blanket in Cooper Kupp, or we'll see. It looks like it, and even Tyler Higbee too. But I think you have here on the notes that they're ranked 25th in offense and they're averaging 18 points per game. The Rams are worse. They're like in the 16, 17 point mark. But I think the offense, the running game is a little better, but not much better. So these are teams that are very, very a lot of things in common. Even like with Shaquille Barrett, down, like they're going to be struggling with the pass rush too. So it's a familiar team. It's a wounded animal game. Your back's against the wall. You're trying to get into the playoffs, but maybe that might add some excitement here with a lot of pressure for this game. But Victor, I know you got to move on to the next one. I think you're going to touch more on the offensive line, or maybe you already did. But just to add a
Okay.
point to it is Aaron Donald, like you mentioned his name earlier. Maybe this could be the game where he finally beats some of this triple blocking and makes his presence felt. Like I feel like you haven't had the presence game of Aaron Donald since what? Maybe the Arizona game where he had to shoelace tackle or sack on Kyler Murray. It's I know that he's always, with 3 or 4 guys on him. I get it. But at some point when you're the best in the world, make your presence felt. And I think it's time. Maybe this could be the week for him.
Yeah, and I mean that's part of the storyline here is how do the Rams take advantage of those weaknesses that the Buccaneers present? And I think what makes great coaching in this league is being able to take advantage of teams' weaknesses. And I thought one of the things that going back to Kirk Morrison, is that it was surprising not to see McVay take advantage of those of what the Chiefs did to the
Yeah.
Niners. And so hopefully in this game we get to see that. That's why we brought up the storylines with the Buccaneers. So that way you guys can kind of gauge where the Buccaneers are at this point, and the same thing with the Rams. But let's go ahead and move on to player matchups. What's your player matchup this week?
Yeah, hopefully I didn't take one of yours, Victor, because I was trying to get greedy about with the Aaron Donald mention, because I don't want to mention that for my player matchup, but I mentioned it anyways.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned, I keep saying mention the whole, boring offenses averaging 18, 17 points. Enough is enough at some point. Allen Robinson got paid $46 million to bring the heat here. I know it's not all his fault, but it's already week 9. It's game 8 of the season. And then Van Jefferson, maybe a little more leeway here because he's just coming back. But it's game 2. No targets in the first game. You need to see Allen Robinson and Van Jefferson do something here to help out Cooper Kupp, who's not 100%. Like, are we just gonna expect Cooper Kupp to be Cooper Kupp with the swollen right ankle? I don't see it. So This is a game where Allen Robinson and Van Jefferson need to step up against his Buccaneers secondary. It's a decent secondary, but this defense, like Kirk Morrison mentioned, is not the same like last year. Yeah, I want to say Carlton Davis, who was one of their top cornerbacks. You know,
Yep.
he's a stud, but it's still a beatable secondary. Obviously, if they get their pass rush, it's gonna be an issue for Stafford. But if Stafford has time, because Stafford actually had time against the 49ers. I know the second half was a little shaky, uh, but what they did in that second quarter, it was good. It was protection. There were some great throws by Stafford. The only issue I really had, Victor, with that second quarter, very long drive. Like I'm watching the game. It's like 8-9 minute drives. Cool, you scored, but it took you 9 minutes. And then the 49ers go down on the next drive, trick play McCaffrey to Ayuk, and all it took was 3 plays. Those are explosive plays and touchdowns that get up the field. These are your vertical threats. Allen Robinson is not a speedy guy, but he's your jump ball guy. You throw it up to him 20, 25 yards, and then Van Jefferson is your speedy guy there. So all I keep hearing about Van Jefferson, he brings the juice. And I spoke to Van Jefferson in the locker room today. Nice guy. He almost gave me the whole, he gave me the excuse, I'll talk to you later, and never come back. But he came back. He's a good guy. He came back to talk to
Wow.
me. So shout out to Van Jefferson. So hopefully for Van Jefferson and Allen Robinson, this is a game. I know it's a lot of factors for wide receivers, but at some point, it's like make your presence felt, like Aaron Donald, like I mentioned, have a game against the secondary.
Yeah, and I like it. And I thought one of the things that was key was that with Van Jefferson being back, he still didn't get targeted. That was not something that I was expecting to see. I hope that they throw a couple of bombs to him, whether it works or not. At least try to stretch the field here. So that'll be something to look forward to. I like that player matchup. For me, I'll go to the other side of the ball. And as you talked about, it's not just Aaron Donald. It's got to be that defensive line. They got to take advantage of uh, this offensive line, and especially up the middle. If they can get pressure, and don't let the Leonard Fournette get going. I mean, there's a reason why they've been really bad this year running the ball. So you don't want this to be the game where they go off. So make sure that you stop them here, and that you continue to give them a struggle. So for me, this is my player matchup is the defensive line against their weak offensive line, and hopefully Raheem Morris takes advantage of that and kind of plays a little bit more man than zone, like the fans have been asking, and it'll lead to a win here.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how the presser with Raheem Morris goes, because and it's funny. It's really maybe it's a little unfair to get caught up on one game, because the first games after the Bills game, how many games was that? Like 6 or 5. This defense is
Hmm.
playing pretty well, so I think Raheem got caught up in the thing where, like, okay, they're in a group, keep doing what you're doing. But when you're playing Jimmy G, who's a quick trigger guy, and it's all about giving your guys the ball in space and making it work, it just didn't work out. You got to tweak it, and so I'm curious to see what Raheem says about that, because you know yeah, I think maybe Brady also has a quick trigger, but he likes to let things play out downfield with Mike Evans. So maybe it might be a similar scheme, because the whole scheme is about don't beat us behind, beat us in front of us. So I'm very curious to see what Raheem Morris says. But yeah, that's a good take or for a matchup here, Victor.
All right, well, let's get to our keys to the game. What do you have for us? What's going to be the determining factor for the Rams to get a win against the Buccaneers?
Yeah, I'm sticking with the defense here, and it's more of a theme here where I have like enough is enough. Like I'm tired of watching the same game here every single week with a boring offense, a slow offense, and then on defense, you do just enough to keep them at the end zone, but you don't have any sacks or turnovers. Enough is enough. It's week 9. Get a turnover, get a few sacks, create pressure, and it's kind of a two-part parter here for me for my keys to the game. But you got to make an impact defensively. Make your presence felt. I think the word of the day. Make your presence there. Stand out. When the ball comes your way, Jalen Ramsey, catch the ball. And I'm sure when we talk to him on Friday, he's gonna be kicking himself about that. Like, yeah, he should have got that interception. And I think it might have been a pick six. He had a lane there, and so much to the point where somebody in the press box lost her crap. Like they pounded the table when he dropped it. So that person really wanted Ramsey. No cheer in the
Oh
press box, by
wow.
the way.
Yeah, I
But
know.
that person really wanted the pick there, and then it felt like this is where my transition is. After I think Ramsey forced that fumble on McCaffrey, him and Taylor Rapp, and it just popped and went back into McCaffrey's possession. It really deflated this team. So you got to get these turnovers because they're game changers on the field and mentally. And it was very just concerning to see a defending Super Bowl champion with so many veterans, so many great players lose their cool early in the fourth quarter when it's a 3-point game. You're not out of it. And I know the whole history with the 49ers played a factor. Don't give me this McVay stuff that it doesn't matter when you're like, oh, here we go again. We lost a halftime lead. There goes our only advantage against the 49ers team without Deebo Samuel. It's going to be 8 losses in a row. They lost their cool way too early. They were mentally out of it. Jalen Ramsey was also one of the biggest corporates. He showed his frustrations out there. Ernest Jones had a bad roughing McCaffrey penalty. Allen Robinson, I know that was kind of a borderline one, but getting in the face of Ufanga, you never see emotion from Allen Robinson, but he had it there. So there, and then Tyler Higbee slamming his helmet. This seemed like a team that just got frustrated way too easily. That cannot happen in Tampa Bay. And say you have a lead, or say you're behind 7, 8, 10 points. Stop being predictable. When the game is done after you're down 10 points, you got to go and score fast, get up the field. Like it just seems like the same script over again. So obviously a pick six or a scoop and score will help you out, but don't lose your cool and make some of these game changing plays, because those are the keys of the game, and those are things they haven't done all year.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see. I mean, they had some opportunities there for turnovers. They forced 2 fumbles on McCaffrey, but the 49ers recover those. And then you had the 2 passes where McCaffrey, I'm gonna say McCaffrey again. Ramsey almost had 2 interceptions there. So, yeah, I mean, those are ones that you have to uh get there because they're big. That's why they're called turnovers, because those takeaways are huge. They're huge momentum changers, and that was something that they could have taken advantage of, especially in those first 2 quarters of the game, because they came out like gangbusters, and then of course they faded in the second half. But for me, it's gonna sound like a broken record, and it was something that I asked Kirk Morrison, and it was something that he even went into, and the response he gave me was one of the ones that it stuck with me, because I was like, yes, this is exactly what we've been asking, and that's establish the run. Like we, as Kirk Morrison said, McVay is stubborn to run because he wants to run things the way he runs things, and he doesn't want to change things. Run the ball, man. Like, take advantage of the fact that you just saw the Buccaneers get run over by the Ravens. And as he said, he's like, yes, that's the Ravens' identity, but they know what's coming, and they still ran all over the Bucks. It doesn't matter how you run the ball. I'm not saying, hey, just give the ball to Daryl Henderson, to Ronnie Rivers, to whoever, Malcolm Brown. Use different ways to try and run the ball. Use some jet sweeps. Use screens, whether it's running back screens, whether it's a wide receiver screen. Those are ways you can run the ball. It doesn't automatically just say you're gonna run for 3 yards and a cloud of dust and then be over with. No, I'm saying, like, use different ways of running the ball, and we know that McVay is really good at doing this. We just want to see it more, because it turns into play action for Matthew Stafford, to where you can hit Van Jefferson deep. So for me, I'll keep it the same again, and it'll be establishing the run for me.
Yeah, no, it's a big one. Again, it's something they haven't done all year, and we'll see if they get Cam Akers back this week. Maybe that could help. Maybe that cannot. Kyron Williams has been practicing. Maybe it's a game where he comes
Okay.
back and helps them out, because you can't have Ronnie Rivers being your starting running back and expect that to work. That's not going to work. I know Daryl Henderson was dealing with the flu. Maybe he's healthy, but even when all your guys are available, you're still not running the football. So I think what Kirk Morrison said was like, at some point, even when you don't think it's working for the first quarter, just keep doing it, stay committed, and stay stubborn to the run, and don't abandon it. And I was very surprised, Victor, they didn't do the jet sweeps against the 49ers. Like, if you're gonna go against the best play caller in the NFL and Kyle Shanahan, you're gonna play a chess match. You want to bring out your best playbook, right? We did not see that last week, so we'll see what he does against Todd Bowles here and Tom Brady and this Buccaneers team that's very savvy as well. But you got to run the football, and I really feel like it's going to feel like a playoff atmosphere. And maybe it's over exaggerating because they're both losing teams, but there's a pressure in this game. So, and when there's pressure and a lot of intensity and it's physical, you got to run the football.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be a physical game. I can tell you that. Like, don't be surprised if a couple players from both teams, leave the game with injuries, because these are both teams that like to smash and pound. So, in terms of like physical and on defense and on offense. So, don't yeah, I expect what you just said to happen. But let's get to our mailbag now. House of Horns mailbag, introducing it here. We had some feedback from different Rams fans here. Let me read the first one from American Steel. It says, it bites not trading for some players, but who knows if that would really help us in the long run. Yes, maybe no. The players we have need to step up and show we can play at a high level. Go Rams. So it's kind of goes into what we just
Yeah.
talked about in terms of what we might see against the Buccaneers.
Yeah, first of all, it makes me so happy that we're finally getting so much engagement that now we're having polls on the House of Horns channel community section. Make sure to check out the polls and the posts and the comments. Like, it has like a whole Facebook vibe there, and people are responding. I saw people voting last week. So and then even the video we just posted on Kirk Morrison, I saw like 10 comments already. People are really engaging with us, and that's what we really wanted, and that makes me so happy. So that now we have a section here, House of Horns mailbag. So yes, to answer Mr. Steele there, what this guy always throws me off. But what he mentioned was like, actually, I feel like it's a collective, feeling from the fan base. I know a lot of people are disappointed about not getting like a star player, but I think a lot of people feel like maybe this team is not a player away. Maybe this is a year you keep those draft picks and develop for the future, and maybe you get a home run pick in the second round or third round. So I think a lot of people are like, yeah, McCaffrey would have been nice, or yeah, Brian Burns would be nice. But I think a lot of people are maybe a little excited about keeping draft picks. It just sounds weird, but we haven't done it in years, in a bunch of years. I think people really like that. Hey, sometimes like we see young stars in the NFL all the time. You got to keep the picks to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that I know their slogan is "F the picks," but I think fans, I think fans. One of the things I can tell you in terms of if you follow other sports is having those homegrown guys. You get attached to those players, like Cooper Kupp, man. Cooper Kupp is your guy. He's a guy that you drafted, you develop. He was drafted in the third round, and look, he blossomed into the best receiver in the league, last year. And those type of stories, yeah. Matt Stafford came over, Von Miller and those guys, but you want to be able to have those players that you develop that you can get attached to. And I think this is where a lot of the fans want to do, like, hey, we want to have our, yeah, like it got us a Super Bowl, but let's draft some players that we can get ourselves attached to. That way, we can have the next Cooper Kupp, we can have the next, good player, Aaron Donald, and the best players you have are the ones you've developed. So, I'm sure that's what they want to do. All right, now we have one from Ray. I'm completely fine with it. We made it. We made big splashes at trade line before under McVay, and we won a Super Bowl. This year, however, we're not one of the two players away from a Super Bowl. Let's keep the draft capital and start building the team in the future. See, so there you go. I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty much the same thing that I just talked about, and it's true. I mean, that's what fans want. They want to be able to attach themselves to some of the and develop some of these players.
Yeah, and I'll keep this one quick, Victor. Like the theme of the season is lack of chemistry. And you go start making more moves, it's gonna be hard to find chemistry. So now that the deadline's over and you got the guys that you have, might as well get together and create that chemistry. Maybe they're gonna take pride in that. And hey, people are overlooking us. We're 3-4. They try to train everybody. Maybe they play with a chip on their shoulder. So we'll see how they play it out.
The next one is actually pretty funny. It's from Stuff and Things 11, and this is I'm more disappointed that they couldn't get anything for Cam Akers. They did run into the ground so deep that no team wanted to pick up a shovel and get him. So there you go. I guess he wasn't happy with Cam Akers and the fact that he didn't get traded. I'm sure everybody's frustrated. Fans are frustrated. The Rams are frustrated. So is Cam Akers. But now we have a solution. We know that he didn't get traded. He's going to have to remain on the team. And as Kirk Morrison talked about, he needs to show that he has some value for next year if he wants to sign somewhere else eventually. You know, having a good attitude helps here. Like, you have to make it work somehow for yourself as a player, because right now it's about you. Like, if you're gonna be a team guy, you need to show it, because then that way other teams can see that you actually value yourself enough to be a team player.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with the miles on the tires, and he's still a young running back. Yeah, he has the torn Achilles, and he was struggling when he was playing. But who wants to take on that headache on the position that's the easiest or the most replaceable in the NFL? And what are you gonna give up, a 6 round pick, or even a 7 round pick, and you could just change these running backs like crazy. So, and then the funny thing is, like, I don't know what's going on because McVay won't bring the reasons to light. Their private in-house reasons, but it just feels like you know when you are the running back who's struggling and you have no leverage, maybe just do what the coach says and stick it out. And then when you're free agent, that's when you complain and you leave. A lot of players have the same scenarios where they don't like the coaches or the scheme, but they stick it out for the 4-year contract and they move on. It's not like he's gonna be stuck there for 6-7 years. This is his 3rd year, so I don't get what was going on that was so bad for him that he had to say it, and had a dispute with McVay. I shouldn't go too much into it because I don't know the details. But at some point, you just gotta, like, take it on the chin, play football, and then you move on to the next team.
Yeah, no, I know you can, because you're the beat reporter for the Rams, but I have no affiliation with a newspaper right now. So uh, after having the conversation with Kirk Morrison that we had, to me, my takeaway from it was that he was unhappy with his role. At least that's the perception that I got, and made it seem more like kind of like what we saw with Elijah Moore, where he was just frustrated with him getting his own as opposed to what the team wanted from him. And I think he was probably frustrated with the whole, Am I going to get enough carries here or not?" But I think one of the things that has stuck out with me as we've started this process of doing this podcast was, early on you told me about one of the players that you got to be back in the locker room, and one of the things that I guess one of the players told you was, "Look, all I care about right now is getting my pension, getting to that
Yeah.
3rd or 4th year." And I think you have to look at it in that term too. Like, that guy that you talked to, that player, has his right mindset. He's like, "Look, I got to do what I need to do to make sure that I get that pension, because I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do this." And I think for Cam Akers, he's not there yet. And eventually, maybe, as Kirk Morrison said, seeing that he didn't get picked up and that nobody wanted him, maybe it'll turn his mind around and be like, "Look, I have to be a team player, and if I want to get paid and get a second contract somewhere else, I'm gonna have to do what the Rams want me to do."
Yeah, and last thing on here, because we gotta get to the prediction, is like the crappy part is, like, he's actually a good person. At least when I've talked to him, he's been very nice to me, and he knows I have a job to do. Like, there's been so much drama with Cam Akers that every time I go up to him, I gotta ask drama questions, and he always says, "Yeah, I'll talk to you." So he faces the music, and before I even got there, a lot of people spoke really highly of Cam Akers. Like, this guy remembers people's names, like Sean McVay. So It must have got really bad to a breaking point where he just couldn't take it, because all I hear is good things about him as a person. And even Sean McVay said, "Hey, I'm trying to remember the experience of dealing with the human side. Like, this guy's an awesome person. Maybe I should give him a second chance." So I think that's gonna help him out. But when you haven't done much in the NFL, sometimes just talk to your teammates. Keep it to yourself. Talk to your therapist or whatever. Don't go and annoy the head coach of the team, and then you're in the doghouse. But that's all I have to say
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, let's go. Let with that, we'll put a pin on that and move on. Let's get to our predictions. But before we do, let me just give you some betting spreads here. The Rams are 3-point underdogs, and the over/under is 42.5. So with that said, Gilbert, give us your prediction for this game.
A quick question, Victor. I think the over hit last week, right? Because the 49ers
It
kind of
went
went on a
over.
roll.
I
Yeah.
went with the under last. Yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah,
both went under. So I was gonna
yeah.
say, like, I feel like these outcomes are always predictable because they're always gonna be under, and not last week. So, but it felt like it because the Rams only got 14 points. That is predictable. So I'll start out that way. I'm glad people are listening to the show because it feels like the same old thing we're always talking about with this team. But until you prove it to me, until you show me, they showed me something with the offensive line last week. It wasn't that bad. It was okay. It could have been worse. Nick Bosa had his one sack in the second half. It was okay. Stafford had his time. But now this offense as a whole, Matthew Stafford, the running game, whoever's going to be in there, because it's like Ronnie Rivers, Kyron Williams, Cam Akers, Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson. There's 5 guys. Whoever it is, show me that you could be a balanced attack, a spread out attack, not just Cooper Kupp, and you could go down the field and score. I haven't seen it. And yeah, maybe this Buccaneers defense is down, but they're at home. They have Tom Brady, and when his back is against the wall, he plays at his best. So I'm taking Tom Brady, number 12, to beat the Rams here. I need to see urgency. Until I see it on the field, I can't pick them. So I will go. I think, you know what? I'll just keep it with the over here. No, never mind. It's going to be a physical, low scoring game. 23-20. I feel like I do that score all the time. Buccaneers.
Well, I mean, both teams aren't scoring that many
Oh,
points, so like
that's,
it's
yeah, it's actually the overs. I just thought about it. It's an over, but whatever.
yeah, yeah. I've been going back and forth with this one just because I wanted to give the Rams, a bump here just because of what I saw in the first half, and I know, having done some research on the Buccaneers and all their struggles that they've had this season, I'm like, okay, maybe this is the week that I'm gonna go with the Rams just because one of the things of the themes that we've seen as a recipe to beat the Rams this season has been if you have a really good pass rush and a good defense, you're going to beat the Rams this year. The problem is that the Buccaneers don't have they don't have a really good defense this year. They've struggled with Devin White, Devontae David. They lost Shaq Barrett there. So, and then their secondary, even though last year they weren't healthy, this year they're healthy. They haven't been as good as they've been in the past. So that's been another thing. But one of the things that stood out to me that I've noticed, and I don't know if you have, I know we don't pay attention to Thursday night games because they've been pretty bad, but I've noticed that the teams who play on Thursday night usually do really well because they get the 10 days off. Like as we saw with the Saints, they beat the Raiders, and then we saw the Bears kind of demolish the Patriots as well. So I think here I'm gonna go with you as well. I'm gonna go with the Buccaneers. I mean, I as much as I thought about this, and I'm like, there's some advantages where the Rams can do something here, but honestly, I just like as you said, I come back to Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the X factor here. You know, whenever people give up on him, like they have, like he's just going through the divorce right now. You have a bunch of things going on with him, and for almost 20 plus years, we've seen Tom Brady, whenever people doubt him, he comes back and leads his team back from the dead, and I think this is going to be the beginning of it. They're in a terrible division and they're at home. So for me, I'm gonna stick to the same score I had last week. It's gonna be a close game, close physical game. I'm gonna take the under here, and I'm gonna say it's 20-17 Buccaneers. They
Okay.
win it on a Ryan Suckup field goal late in the game.
Yeah, and these are all great points because like I feel like when they have a team has a great pass rusher, you usually go with a team with the pass rusher against the Rams. The Buccaneers don't have that. But like you mentioned, the whole playing on Thursday night football, being at home, 10 days rest, having Tom Brady, also having the pressure, like this team can't go 3-6, right? So I think this is why it's more like they gotta have it more, Buccaneers. So great points there, Victor. Another great show here. House of Horns, week 9. If you're just stumbling on this episode and you're checking it out, and you like it, make sure to subscribe, tell a friend, be a friend, do all that, and leave a comment too. We want people to check us out and be really engaged in the community aspect here. I know it's not the best season, but when you have each other and you're commenting and you're watching the show, it makes me really happy.
Yeah, and we have a lot of stuff for you guys. I mean, that Kirk Morrison interview was honestly like every week we try to, and I'll give credit here to Gilbert because he's the one that gets the guess. And getting Kirk Morrison was big because he gave us a lot of information. So if you haven't, please go and check that interview out. He gives us a lot of nuggets. He actually thinks that they're gonna the Rams are, if you thought it was kind of gloomy here with some of our predictions. Kirk Morrison believes that they're going to make a run here and make the playoffs. So, and that this is a playoff roster. So, that's a good interview to go and check out. But yeah, please continue to on Sunday after the game. I know some
Yeah.
people were upset with Gilbert with us because we weren't on time with our post game show, but Gilbert has some stories to write, and he's in the locker room, so it kind of takes us a little bit longer to get on. So, but he's going to be down in Tampa covering the game, and so he's either going to do the post game show from Jamin Rain Stadium, or he's going to be in his hotel. We'll figure it out, but. We hope that you can join us and you can comment on there as well. We had a lot of people engage with us during the post game show, so that was awesome to see. But please, continue to engage with us. We love it. We'll continue to give you guys the feedback. But on that note, Gilbert,
Yeah.
get us out of here. And unless you have something more,
No,
I'm
I
sorry.
was gonna say thank you for being patient for the post game show. I think I'm gonna try to schedule it for 6:30 if you see it on YouTube. But if it's like 7 p.m. something like that or 6:45, bear with me. But I appreciate you guys waiting. That shows people are excited. And one final thing to plug: check out COMPAS on the Beat. It's where we discuss the entire NFL landscape. If you enjoy all NFL 32 teams and you want to just have hear some jokes or some banter with me and Victor, Fernando, Dan, and Diego. Check that out. Also, we have What's Up Boats or Chargers podcast, but maybe you don't care about the Chargers, but you have Justin Herbert in your fantasy team. I will say that. And check out Combat Compas, where we talk all things boxing, pro wrestling, and MMA. Way too much content on here. But Victor, you got to get going. I got to get going. I got to
Hold
catch
on,
that
hold on,
flight
hold
to
on.
Tampa Bay soon.
Hold
Go
on, hold
ahead.
on. I can't let you leave without you plugging your stories
No,
for the
too much
for the
plugs.
OC Register, the daily news. Please tell us what you're working on because they need to go and check out your work because you do great work for the OC Register, Ellie Daily News. He's got great stuff for you. He's got interviews that he gets for us here that you guys enjoy. So go ahead and let us know what you're working on.
Thank you, sir. Check out my stories at the Orange County Register or the Los Angeles Daily News or one of the 11 newspapers at the Southern California News Group, or just check me out on Twitter and follow the link there. So at gmanzano24. Right now, or whenever you're checking out this podcast, check out the story that I have on Sean McVay reflecting on his grandfather, John McVay, like we mentioned earlier in the show. I'm going to have one on the defense needing to create pressure on Tom Brady. Maybe something on what Jalen Ramsey says on a Friday presser. And obviously, I'm going to have a big story Sunday on who wants this game more. And we discussed it here in the podcast. So check that out. There's also stories on Cam Akers, I'm guessing, all week. He might play, he might not. We'll see. But check that out. But on that note, ya nos vamos, Victor. Pues, vámonos.